So, just to start, I think it is important that everyone has some context as to what you're learning and who you're learning it from, right? I know when I'm interested in learning or if I'm on a webinar, I want to know the person teaching it has actually done it themselves, which is important. Quick backstory, I started in this business, in the purchase side of the business in 2011, no team, did $11 million in volume that year. And over time, I was able to build a personal production team that was helping roughly 60 families per month. And our best year, we did about 330 million in personal production, while also leading, I was leading other origination teams. And those teams were using our support and ops staff that we had built for a total of about 1.5 billion in that same year. The interesting part about this is that I worked infinitely longer hours and had a lot more stress and anxiety in the year when I did 11 million or the following year when I did 60 million than in the year that we did 1.5 billion. And I'm sharing this because we have to stop being intimidated of big production numbers. I'm seeing this far too often. Big production numbers don't mean more hours, right? It doesn't mean more work. It doesn't mean more headache. What it actually means is more freedom, right? It means more impact, more opportunity for everybody involved. So I want to try something here. If you guys can help me out, go to the Q&A section and type in the answer to this, right? If you had a magic wand and in 3 years you could create the business that you wanted, right? Working 8 hours a day, right? Not working nights and weekends. How many families would you help in a year? Easy answer. So just go into the Q&A. So for example, I'd help 100 families if that were my magic wand number. Just write that number in there for me real quick. I just want to see what it is. All right, we got 250, 120, 400, 120, 240, 150, 360. So it looks like we're in that 100 to 300. Gene, we got 600. Love that one. Ed, okay, cool. Keep writing them in if you don't mind. And then we're going to revisit this towards the end if we have time. But I want to just be very honest. Those numbers are low. So this next hour that we have together is going to be meant to open up your scope of what's possible. So let me help you understand what I mean by that. For starters, I think that the mortgage professional of the future will help 50 to 100 or more families per month. Why do I believe that? Because technology and lead generation at scale is going to completely shift the market, right? And all of the market share is going to move to the teams that are already built and ready for it, right? These teams are going to have an infinite structure with systems and processes that allow each of them to stay like very solidly in their genius zone. So let me unpack that a little bit. This is going to be a part where you may want to take some notes. We'll send the recording out afterwards. But now, hear me when I say this. Your team will be getting roughly 200 to 400 leads a month. You're going to have an intake team of production partners and mortgage advisors that work on this aspect of the business. And then you, as the team leader, you're going to go partner with the best real estate agents, the financial planners and builders in your state, because you need someone to drive all that business too, right? You're then going to have another production team of production partners and mortgage advisors that will handle referrals coming back in from those exclusive partnerships. And all this is going to happen with you focusing on leadership, right? You're going to be the leader of that group, right? You're going to focus on training, business development, lead gen sources, business partnerships, and then all of the pre-approval work, the minutia, the fulfillment, the client experience, that's going to be handled by your technology and your team. Your clients are going to have incredible experiences, right, with very low friction. They're going to have such a transformational experience that they're going to tell all their friends and family and everyone in their network about the value that you and your team provide. You're going to have higher margins because you can focus on value versus cost. And your cost of fulfillment is going to come down because your scale and technology will create that opportunity, which is going to mean that you'll be more competitive and more profitable at the same time. Your team's also going to have a client success manager who executes on your long-term value proposition, a business development leader who helps with partnerships, and a team manager who ensures everything runs very smoothly, manages your P&L, looks at your numbers, looks at your future growth needs, your trajectory. And when you do need to grow, your company, like your enterprise, is going to be in charge of finding, interviewing, hiring, training, leading, and really running point on the support and ops teammates so you can stay focused on production, scalability, and growth. Each teammate, including you, is going to have a really strong work-life balance. You'll be able to take vacations, right, without bringing your computers and checking your phones every minute. You'll have coverage while you're away, so you don't have to come back to a dumpster fire. Many of you probably know what I'm talking about. And lastly, and most importantly, is that everyone on your team is going to have a very clear vision, not only for themselves and how they can advance professionally, but also for the team as the team grows, which when that happens, that's going to create inspiration and energy on everyone in your team because everyone's going to be working for tomorrow, not just today. It's not going to be Groundhog Day like unfortunately it is for most people every day currently. So I know that was a lot, right? That's the future. Now, I want to talk about how to get there. Quick story, 2018, we had a mortgage advisor join our group and he was stuck. I mean, he was burnout, but he was talented, right? He was driven. He had a great work ethic, but he was on a hamster wheel. His pipeline was shrinking or fluctuating. He wasn't getting a lot of new business. And he just felt like he was carrying the entire thing on his back. Following me here? Some of you, this might be striking a chord. So fast forward, same market, same products, same competition, but this time we put the right team around him. He went from 20 million to $100 million in production in 18 months. Stress dropped, right? Finally got his life back. And one day he came into my office, he goes, Ryan, I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but like now that my team is doing everything, I'm lost. Like, what do I do? And I loved, first of all, I loved the vulnerability, but secondly, I loved that he was at that place because that's when you do all the real hard work, right? That's when you do the work that scares you. That's when you push yourself outside of your comfort zone of doing all the little things that make us feel like we're productive, but we're really not. So that's the power of a dream team. And today I'm going to show you exactly how to build yours. But we have to start by acknowledging the elephant in the room here, in that there's never been a blueprint to grow or scale a team, right? There's no MBA or business school for the mortgage business, right? You just got a bunch of salespeople who learned about doing loans, tried to figure out how to grow a business. And I was in that same boat, right? So here's what I did. I'm going to share my screen and we'll walk you through some of this. All right, so we're going to move past these. Just a heads up, at the end of this class, we are going to do a giveaway. I'm only going to do a giveaway to the first 10 people who sign up for it because it's just a lot of time. But I think it's going to be really impactful and I think it will help you scale your business tremendously. Make sure to stick around to the end and then hit that QR code. And I'm looking forward to helping some people with it. So this is the mortgage team of the future. This was my journey. I hired the first person I could find because I needed help badly, right? This was in this part of my production career when a lot was going wrong before everything started going right. I had no idea if the person I hired was qualified. I just hired the first person who I thought could be good. I didn't know exactly what they would do. I didn't really have time to train them. I guessed at what their comp plan should be. And then I wasn't the right person to lead them. Right? Nor did I paint a vision for a better future for them. So what do you think happened? They didn't stick around for very long. Then I got upset and I was like, fine, I'll just do it myself. And then I had PTSD to hire somebody else. And I did this countless times. And luckily, some of the teammates stayed and some were amazing. It's hard for me to tell you the turnover that I had early in my career as a team leader. And I just told myself, hey, that's just how this must be. I guess you just have to, I guess this industry just has turnover. That's a story we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel better. I'll use ownership language. That's a story I told myself to make myself feel better. And over time, through masterminding with others, I was really able to start figuring out who I needed. Then I was able to figure out how to let go of things, how to delegate. And after more than a decade, our team created what I believe is the most scalable, best team structure for a mortgage professional that we have today. And I know there's millions of options out there for how to build a team. I just know how impactful this one is. So team, you guys don't have to hit your shins and lose money and go through the stress and turnover that I did. All right, this is going to help you shortcut all of that. But this is a very big but. Before I go into all this stuff, we have to decide if we're going to change first. I can't tell you how many times we've talked to people about this process or what we're doing or how we're doing it for people to literally fight back and demand that they control every aspect of the loan, right? Hover over the process, helicopter over their small pipeline. Because why? That's where they found their value, right? Because historically, that's what we were good at. We were good at all of these things. Guys, we're not valuable today for what we used to be valuable for yesterday. I was one of those people out there who would tell people, hey, my pre-approvals are solid. We're going to close on time. I know my stuff. We have rock solid pre-approvals. That is not even close to what makes the next generation mortgage professional. The next gen mortgage professional is highly visible. They generate leads at scale. They are really good at business development, and they are a great leader. That's the people who are going to attract the 50 to 100 families a month. That's the people who are going to take this market share. And the team and the tech are going to do the rest. But it's only going to happen if you let it. So let's start with the team here. Just a heads up, I'm going to show you how we're doing it here at Neo, just because that's how we do it, right? And it's because of the scale that we are building. But if you want to hire these roles on your own or independently, you definitely can. If you just want to send me a message on Instagram or LinkedIn, I can actually send you all the job descriptions of all these roles, comp plans, all that stuff. I know that there's actually some company owners on this call today. I know we have some head of ops and head of production on this call today at other organizations. And my advice for anyone who's really leading at scale would be to create an enterprise solution for your teams. And I know that's hard to do. It's really hard to create enterprise solutions. Why? Because you become accountable for the success or failure. But as a leader of an organization or a group, you have to make that investment, right? You have to invest in the people that you're betting on to be the future of the industry because they need it, right? So I'm going to explain these slides here. The leverage specialization is important for someone who is helping probably 1 to 2 families a month, all the way up to maybe 15 families a month. They should have access to a credit analyst, a loan specialist, and a client success manager at the minimum, and potentially a production partner depending upon the type of business that they run. And I'm going to go into all of the work that these people do. But it's hard. I've heard this a lot in my career where I had a manager say, as soon as you get to X production, we'll hire you someone. First of all, they never hired anybody for me. They maybe allowed me to hire someone, but how was I supposed to reach that next point if I didn't have anybody helping me free me up to be in my genius zone? So having a credit analyst and a loan specialist means that the mortgage advisor, myself in this situation, I don't have to do a lot of the work that I did previously, which frees me up to go help 4 to 5 plus families per month, right? Then I can really start to build into my team. So if you are currently at an organization that doesn't have an enterprise solution that helps you in these areas, just talk to your leadership, tell them how valuable it would be. Or if you are a leader, this is one of the things that I would really highly suggest that you invest the time and energy in because your team will get a massive lift from it. So first, we're going to start with a mortgage advisor, team lead. If you're on this call, this is likely you, right? You're the person who is the leader of the team. You're the person who is doing the dreams and goals call. Note that I wrote for now because ideally you can get to a point where your production partner starts handling the dreams and goals calls, the intake calls, the discovery calls. But if you don't have that production partner who is skilled or versed in that, then you'll want to do the dreams and goals call for now. And by the way, we have tons of previous webinars that explain all of these things if you have questions on them. So you're going to do dreams and goals call. You're definitely going to do the client consultations. You're going to do the contract meetings. You're going to do business development, and you're going to be highly visible, right? You're going to focus on your visibility. This is the role of the mortgage advisor. If you're a mortgage advisor and you find yourself doing something outside of these, there's a breakdown in your team structure somewhere. And you just want to talk to your leadership and figure out where that breakdown is if you find yourself doing something outside of this realm. Why is that? Because your production partner should be handling these things, right? They're handling your CRM and lead management. They're handling your email and calendar management. If you're in your emails, that makes you a reactive professional, not a proactive professional, and that's a problem. Your production partner should be managing your email at a high level, so you only need to check it once or twice a day, or if there's some urgency. They're going to focus on your lead follow-up because, again, you're going to have a ton of leads coming inbound, not only from scalable leads, but also from referrals that kind of create that ecosystem. They're going to schedule your dreams and goals calls. They're going to schedule your consultations. They'll ultimately, hopefully, start taking on some of your dreams and goals calls. And then they're going to follow up with your business partners in a pre-approval state, right? So prior to pre-approval, production partner one is handling all communication with agents on lead follow-up, lead status, next step, inviting them to your calls, inviting them to your consultations. Next is credit analyst. And again, ideally, everyone will have access to a credit analyst from day one. Like you don't need this overhead on your branch or your P&L until you reach a certain point where that it makes sense. But until then, you want a credit analyst that does all your pre-approval work, right? Crossing T's, dotting I's, AUS, running income, credit, and out. Anything that the tech doesn't do, you want your credit analyst doing. That way you have 1,000% rock solid approvals. Client connection for more info. So if there's something missing that is material for them to do their pre-approval, they can reach out to the client, ask a few questions, get verifications of employment, do whatever is necessary. They're going to work with a scenario desk to make sure that things fly. That way, when they do the pre-approval, they know it's accurate. They can actually send the file to underwriting for pre-approval if necessary. Obviously, again, 100% accuracy on all pre-approvals. When you go talk to a client and do a consult, you have rock solid information. And then they're going to update approvals pre-contract, right? So if the client says, I want to go $100,000 higher, I want to do X or Y or Z, the credit analyst is going to step in and just make sure that pre-approvals are updated appropriately. So again, you all should have access to this person. You should not, as the mortgage professional, should not be doing this work. Your credit analyst should be doing it and just putting the information back to you for you to go execute in your consultations. Next is loan specialist. Again, this should be an enterprise role until it makes sense for you to bring it, have a dedicated version. But your loan specialist is going to be everything contract to close. So they're going to do a contract meeting with you as the mortgage advisor and the client, explaining the next 15 to 30 days of the contract period. They're going to reach out to the client proactively, get 5 different touch points. They're going to have a very deep client connection. What I mean by that is they'll have the ability to know things about the client because of the time they spend with them that we might not get to know because we've only spent maybe an hour and a half with them in the dreams and goals call and the consultation. So this is where you get people to go from liking you and your team to loving you and your team. And this is the loan specialist role, is to create that elevated consumer experience where technology really can't replace that level of confidence creation and human connectivity. So loan specialists are incredibly valuable to a team. You're going to have this person, you should have access to a loan specialist that does this. So again, you're not in it. So just make sure that you can access it in some capacity, and then I'll show you in a little bit when you want to bring this person into a dedicated version. Next is production partner 2, right? This is when somebody's done the pre-approval work, so it's gone through production partner 1, they got it to the credit analyst does the work. Now it's pre-approved, consultation's done. At this point, production partner 2 is doing all pre-approval follow-up. So weekly pre-approval follow-up, writing pre-approval letters, talking to the agents, scheduling you to reach out to the listing agent, doing anything between pre-approval and contract. Once the file is in contract, they're going to be updating agents on both sides during contract on your behalf. They're going to be the ones in the pipeline meetings, so they know if anything ever gets off track or squirrely, and they can work with the loan specialist and the ops teams to fix it. The only time you ever get pulled back into a file as a mortgage advisor is if something's going nuclear, because your production partner 2 will protect you from that. They're going to price your loans, lock your loans, prep. If you're doing TCAs for Mortgage Coach or MBS Highway, they're going to prep for your consults, right? So they'll create all that for you. And then they're going to step in as a mortgage advisor when necessary, because the evolution of a production partner 2 is mortgage advisor. That's how they move into the next role. If you're on vacation, you're out of the office, you're sick, you're at your child's game, and a client wants to have a consultation or do a dreams and goals call, the production partner 2 should be like a mini version of a mortgage advisor until they become a full-blown mortgage advisor. Again, gives you freedom, gives you opportunity, gives them opportunity. It's a very aligned model for the way that somebody moves up on your team. So this is the dream team here. You got mortgage advisor, you got 2 production partners, you have a credit analyst, and you have a loan specialist. We'll get to the scale in which you hire them in a second, but this 5-person team should very easily be able to help consistently 30 families per month. With the capacity of each teammate, there's a ton of opportunity there. Loan specialist, a really good loan specialist should be north of 30 families per month, closer to maybe 40. That number will go up as technology improves over time. Credit analysts are going to be much higher than that number. And then your production partners really are going to be a product of your lead system. All right. So now we get into the pod system, because once you start helping 30 families a month, I'd say 25 to 30 families a month, that's where you, as the leader of the team, the mortgage advisor, you're going to be the biggest inhibitor of the team's growth. And I say this out of experience. I was doing 4 client consultations a day, so that's 4 hours. I was doing about 2 contract meetings a day, so that was about an hour combined. And then I was doing prep for those and some dreams and goal call stuff here and there. So I was 5, 6, 7 hours of literally just being with clients, which didn't leave much time for business development, for growth, for visibility, for marketing, for business, being able to be with business partners. And so we came up with the concept of a pod system, which was phenomenal. So pod system, and look, I had kind of had to put a when we did not have great tech, we were using an antiquated LOS system. We were using like a Frankenstein's monster of different things. Without great technology, this is probably the pod system that a mortgage advisor will need, which is, or a team leader would need. So each pod would have one mortgage advisor and 2 production partners. And you notice we have 4 pods here, right? So each production team could ingest 20 to 30 families a month in terms of who they could help. You'd have 2 credit analysts and 3 loan specialists. So it's an 18-person team that can consistently help 100 families a month, right? This is with current state technology that most people have access to. Now, with really great technology, you can bring the cost of fulfillment way down, because you could do the same with 12 people. And over time, maybe less, but I'd still use this 12-person number, right? 1 mortgage advisor, 1 production partner, right? Because the technology can do a lot. You can use your generative chat AI. They can answer calls, they can make calls. And then your credit analyst will be able to scale much higher, and your loan specialist will be able to scale much higher, because we're just taking more and more off of their plate as well. So I think if you really believe in your technology, this is probably the pod system that you want to work towards. And again, you're going to just drive leads to each one of these pods as the team leader. And then everything that comes to conversion and fulfillment will happen within this pod here. Okay, so next is client success manager. This is somebody that you want on your team. Again, best utilized as an enterprise teammate so they can help multiple teams. And the client success manager is the person who executes on your long-term commitment. So when I look at a client and I say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, me, my team, and your real estate agent, we are going to be the most valuable people in your life for the next 30 years in every aspect of real estate or finance. And then I explain all the things we're going to do. I know I'm not going to personally do those. I know that from experience. So what you want is a client success manager, whether they're on your team specifically or whether you're accessing them through your company's enterprise team. They're going to be the ones to do it, right? They're going to do the proactive post-closing. They're going to help generate new business, and they're going to be your relationship superpower. So just real quick, this is like the roadmap for a CSM. 15 days after closing, they're going to reach out, have their post-closing call. They do a 3-month follow-up call, 6-month call, strike rate, perfect mortgage promise, annual financial review every single year, continual annual financial reviews. These are the emails that they're sending out, what they're covering, how they're covering it. They include your realtor partner. They include the financial planners. So client success manager is somebody that you definitely want on your team, because it's the execution of your value proposition, right? Otherwise, you have to be the cheapest because you're selling the same product. So incredibly important that you have some semblance of a client success manager. And ideally, this is all they do, because it's really hard to go back and forth between new client production and past client. It's just a different orientation. So just make sure to have that in your ecosystem somewhere. All right. So the question I get all the time, Ryan, what about processing? You didn't mention processors anywhere in this thing. We don't have a need for processors anymore because we've upskilled our current processing team to a new role. We use virtual teams to do a lot of things while we are sleeping, and our automation takes on a lot of the processing role. So what we did is we previously had processors as early as last year, and we said, look, the industry's changing, technology's changing. We love our processors. They're phenomenal. We want them to have a awesome future in this business. So let's make them more valuable. So what we did is we actually moved them up to do stuff that oftentimes our technology can't do, which is just 100% accuracy on pre-approvals. A lot of pre-approvals can go through from a tech perspective, but maybe 50+% of them, they're going to need human interaction, they're going to need human connection. So our processors are now our credit analysts, which is what you saw earlier. And this adds value to everyone on the team. It adds value to the client, it adds value to the mortgage advisors, it adds value to the credit analyst because now they have a more valuable skill set and role to play as automation and technology starts to take stuff off of our plate. And this is where Genius Zone work becomes really important because a lot of the processing roles, again, they can be done virtually, they can be done by technology. And so let's get these really talented, skilled people to help us get our clients pre-approved much faster and more effectively. Because if we're having 200, 400 leads come in a month, we're going to need that credit analyst team to really make sure we're dialed in so we're not putting out a bunch of pre-approvals that are half baked. Okay, so now let's get into when to hire. I'm sure you guys are probably wondering that by now. You want to utilize your enterprise teammates until about 4+ families served per month. You really don't need any fixed overhead teammates in your world until you're helping 4 families a month. But you will need enterprise support. You do want to use a credit analyst. You do want to use a loan specialist because that's going to help you get to helping 5 families a month. Right? It's going to be really challenging to do that, to go do business development, to go grow, to be visible, to do all your consultations, dreams, and goals calls. It's going to be just challenging to get to that number without some sort of enterprise support. Your first actual team hire would be your production partner 1. This is probably right around the time you're helping 4, 5+ families per month because then you need front end help, right? You need the production partner to take off a ton of the front end work. And then once you start helping 15 families per month, that's when your production partner 1 moves to your production partner 2 because they'll have been trained, they'll have watched you, they'll have shadowed you, they'll know what to do. And then you hire a new production partner 1 when you're helping about 15 families per month. Because again, keep in mind, up until this point, you have a production partner, you have a credit analyst, you have a loan specialist. That should help you get to 15 families per month relatively smoothly. Once you start getting to about 20 families served per month, that's when you might want to bring a loan specialist into a dedicated role. I'm going to explain how to do that next. You don't want to hire them yourself. You don't want to figure out what they do on your own. So I'll explain that, but that's when you want a dedicated loan specialist, mainly because when you're using an enterprise team, you can't always control prioritization. Right? When you have a dedicated loan specialist, you can control prioritization differently, which when you're helping 20 families a month comes in handy. So you start getting to about 25 families a month. That's when your production partner 2 starts to move to a mortgage advisor. Why? Because you're going to tap out as a mortgage advisor. Right? 25 families per month, there's only so much time you have in a day. And there's only so many consultations you can have. There's only so many dreams and goals calls and contract meetings. And you'll be the blocker at that point. So bringing this production partner 2 into a mortgage advisor role means that now there's 2 mortgage advisors. So you can ingest more clients, like more people can come in, and you've trained this person all along to essentially be a carbon copy of you. And this is where a lot of people's fear comes in is, oh, I can't have, my realtors won't want me to pass my clients off to somebody else. Or my clients choose me because of me. That's not true. I can tell you personally, I thought that too. I thought like if I have elevate this person to a mortgage advisor, they're not going to convert like I convert. They're not going to hold price like I can hold price. My realtors get upset. All that's fake. It's not real. I had 4 mortgage advisors, like you saw those pods at our peak, and we were just fine. They converted just like I did. Why? Because they said what I said, right? I taught them to do what I did, and they were really good at it, right? So it's really more of the system than it is the person. As long as you have a good person, they can learn the system. All right, so then you'll want to create a new pod at about 30 families per month, right? That's when you hire a production partner for your new mortgage advisor. It could be you hire 2 production partners for your mortgage advisor, depending upon scale and velocity. And then you'll want to probably bring a dedicated credit analyst into your world when you're helping 35 families a month. Same thing, prioritization, right? You want a little bit more speed and autonomy with that role. Team manager and business developer would probably show up at about when you're helping 40 families per month. And this is just because it's going to get to a place where you really need somebody to focus on your P&L. You need somebody to focus on your economics. You need somebody to focus on your pipeline meetings. You need someone to oversee the entirety of the business, oversee marketing, oversee just all the unique aspects of a business is being run at that scale. Until you get to about 50 families served per month, I would highly recommend you just use your corporate marketing team and an outsourced marketing team. I've used outsourced marketing teams my entire career, and then I brought them in once we reached a certain level of scale. But you don't need that fixed overhead until you really start getting to that 50 families served per month. And then at that point, you want new pods every 30 loans per month, or every 30 families you're helping per month. So once you get to 60, new pod, 90, new pod, 120, new pod, right? And they all work through the same way. Production partner one, production partner two, mortgage advisor, everybody moves up through that chain. So you don't have to just go find a mortgage advisor who already has their own way of doing business and thought process, and you have to retrain them. You can bring them through your world. Okay, another thing about when to hire is you want to use enterprise solutions to avoid hiring and firing as the markets expand and contract. What I mean by this is we've seen this for 20 years. I probably shouldn't have to explain it, but I will. Rates go down to 5% tomorrow. We're going to have to go hire a lot of people. Whoever it is on your team or in your ops staff or whatever, we're going to have to hire a lot of those people because we have a lot of families to help. But then because of the volatility we're seeing in the market, rates go back up to 7% 4 months later. We saw this a little bit in 2024. And now what we have is we have this added overhead without the production anymore. So then we have to lay people off, and then we have to hire them, and then we have to lay people off. If you have an enterprise solution, you avoid that, right? And you get the consistency of the same thing happening every single time. So you don't want to, let's say you have a loan specialist who can help 25 families a month, eyes closed. 30 starts to get a little shaky. It's hard. When you get to 31, it's not just the 31st person that becomes a problem. It's all 31. So if you don't have an enterprise solution to offload the extra 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 files to, if you have a spike in the month, then you have to hire a whole new loan specialist for what? One extra file? And now you're splitting. So now the previous loan specialist is working on 15 and 15, and they're upset. This new person's not going to get a lot of business. So use enterprise solutions to help you scale until the point where you're like, all right, I need another one of my own, because you're not going to go back to 30. You're probably closer to 50 by that point. And this is why having the same roles, the same job descriptions, the same expectations of your person versus the enterprise person is so important. Having the same thing done the same way. My analogy is you run a warehouse and you realize, oh, I'm going to go join Amazon because they're pretty good at this whole selling stuff thing. But you go to Amazon and you say, you know what, Amazon, I'm pretty good at running my warehouse and my distribution. I'm just going to do it my way. They're like, dude, you kidding me? I can get a toothbrush from my warehouse to someone's house in 4 seconds. You think you can do that? It's my way and blah, blah, blah. It's like, let's not do that anymore. Let's work with the enterprise to create a solution that works for everybody, that's scalable, that's consistent, and that's growable. Another reason for enterprise solutions and why you want to wait to have to bring somebody in from a dedicated perspective is just work-life balance challenges. If you have your own person and their own way of doing something, then if you start growing in business, there's nowhere for that overflow to go. It just all pours onto that one person. So now they have a shit work-life balance. Or they go on vacation and have to take their computer, or they get back from vacation and they have dumpster fires everywhere, right? If you use enterprise, you can just overflow to people. And if your person is not that busy, other people can flow into them, right? So it's just, you want that consistency across the board. And then lastly, I would say in terms of when to hire is just hire ahead of growth. If you know it's coming, if you see it coming, if you feel it's coming, it's probably more on the production partner and mortgage advisor side of the equation, because the other ones can scale with enterprise. Just get ahead of it. Once you're like, oh my God, I really need to hire, you're already too late. And then you start hiring out of necessity and without going through the appropriate process. All right, so how to hire. And this is important. Hiring is a team sport. I've hired so many people in my career that were the wrong people. I just did it because I didn't know how to do it, and nobody taught me how. So the way you want to do it is you want to partner with your HR company and your enterprise team to really create a collaboration in hiring, right? So they're going to do the postings, and they already have all the job descriptions. They already know comp plans and all that, right? They're going to interview and do all like the filtration. A good example of this, we recently put out a post for a marketing leader, 700 applicants. What would you do if you put out a post for a production partner and 700 people applied? You would just shut it down. I have no idea how to get to these 700 people, right? But when you have an HR team, an enterprise team that know how to filter through those things, and they use AI in the assessment of the job descriptions and these resumes, it really helps. And what they'll do is they'll bring it down to a final three, right? And then you'll be a part of the panel interview. And then ultimately you figure out the best one. And then you, as the leader, need to sell that ideal candidate on why they should be here, right? Because you want them to be here just as much as, they want to be here as well. It has to be both sided. So if you're having to hire and train and find all your own people, it's a mess. Please don't do that, right? Work with your organization, have them create this process for you where they'll ideally know who you need before you do. But in the case that you need to let them know, just reach out and have them go through this process. And then onboarding. Most people's onboarding process is awful. They don't train anybody. They just expect them to know. I went through early in my career. But you want to have your enterprise team and a training team to get those people up to speed. You want them to be the leaders of the credit analysts and the loan specialists and the client success managers, while you are the leader of the production partners and the mortgage advisors, right? So it's bifurcation there. And then you want to make sure that they are integrated into the team as a part of your onboarding process. So just make sure you have those in place. All right. So now getting into compensation, most important word in this entire compensation model with everything, again, not just teammates, but everybody, is alignment, right? Everybody should have an aligned compensation model. And what does that mean? If someone's losing, we're losing together. If someone's winning, we're winning together. If times are tough, everyone feels it. Times are abundant, everyone wins. Right? Base level salaries should range from maybe 48,000 to 60,000, right? For these particular roles, mainly because if you start getting heavy on salary and you have low months, it is a profitability nightmare. And then you have instability in your team when that happens, right? So base level salaries in this kind of range, I think, are appropriate. Cost of living is necessary, like understanding your demographic, where you live, where your people are. Sometimes you can maneuver this a little bit, but I think that's probably the most fair. And then per file bonuses, anywhere from $50 to $350 per file on scaled comp models. Again, you need to look at your total profitability. If you haven't watched the economics present the webinar we did, go back and watch that because that's important. But you just need to know your profitability. You need to know your cost per loan and ultimately how you can help scale to create synergy between, if everyone's winning, they're winning proportionally. Common mistakes in compensation, global team comp. Please don't do this. That's where, like, when a loan funds, everyone on the team gets paid. I did that for 8 minutes in my business and it was a nightmare because you have somebody that's working their tail off and somebody who's coasting, and it always creates animosity and challenge within the team. So just people get paid for the files they work on. You don't have multiple people that split. The word sometimes does not exist in your vocabulary. It's people get paid for the work they do on the files they work on, but don't pay the whole team on everything. Don't pay people in basis points if you can avoid it. And what I really mean by that is your production partners, your loan specialists, your credit analysts, pay them in dollars, right? Dollars per file. You can pay your mortgage advisors in basis points. That's totally fine. But basis points can run away from you, especially if you start to expand your markets or your markets change. Having the flat dollar keeps you solving for dollars, which is really what we want to do. And again, high salaries creates a misalignment and instability. If you have someone who's making a $100,000 salary and all of a sudden business drops, they're the person who's most at risk, right? Because they're the biggest salary. Whereas the people who are more flexible with higher bonuses, they can flex into good times and the bad. Okay, compensation. Anyone who's bringing in a new deal, probably 25 to 50 basis points on some sort of scale. And then every file has to go through the exact same process. I made this mistake early in my career where I'm like, hey, if you bring in a file, you'll get 50 basis points. I told my production partners that, everybody else. So if they brought in a file, guess what they did? They babysat that thing all the way through. And it was like, and they was focused on that file. Why? Because they got paid the most on that file and they treated it differently. Right? So as long as you have a policy where every file has the same file flow, nothing changes, feel free to pay them if they're bringing in deals on their own, but don't have them focus on that deal differently. Mortgage advisor compensation. This is, again, alignment and transparency. We're going to be doing another economics webinar coming up, but if you didn't watch the previous one, go watch it. That's important for that. And then expectation setting and vision casting. If you have a mortgage advisor who's going to be on your team, right? If it's the ABC mortgage team, whatever it is, you need to make sure you set expectations for what their role will be and what they should probably look to earn. And then also vision cast for them, because oftentimes these people they're go-getters. Sometimes they're high D personalities on the disc profile. You want to make sure that there is a vision of whatever your team is or whatever their vision is. You want to make sure those are aligned early on in that process. And then vision and roadmap for advancement for everybody. What's possible? When is it possible? And how is it possible? We want to help people work for tomorrow, not necessarily today. And I'll explain that here in a second. How to retain and uplevel, right? Growing a team is one thing, retaining a team and upskilling and upleveling that team is another. And this is where you want to have a bifurcation of leadership and mentorship. You, as the mortgage advisor, again, you're going to lead and mentor the production partners and the mortgage advisors. The credit analysts, the client success managers, and the loan specialists are going to be led and mentored by the enterprise team, by those leaders. They're going to mastermind with those people. They're going to figure out how to get better at their role with other people that do that role. Right? They should not be on an island. And as mortgage professionals or as quote unquote salespeople, we're not the right people to lead them. Right? So we shouldn't be doing that. If you find yourself having to lead credit analysts or loan specialists, it's a different world, right? It's just different, right? What they need, what they want, what's helpful for them is just very different than us. So make sure that your organization is supporting that level of leadership and mentorship. Culture of improvement and increased value. One thing that I'm very focused on right now in our teams is how do we continue to make our teams feel safe by helping them grow and get better and helping them become more valuable to the consumer as opposed to more valuable to the loan process. Because technology is going to become more valuable to the loan process. But if we're not focused on what's more valuable to the consumer, we can't help our teams go to where the puck is going. So we need to make sure we always have a culture of improvement and increased value to the consumer experience, not necessarily the loan process. And then vision for career advancement. I just talked about this. We are typically pretty selfish as mortgage team leaders. I was selfish as a mortgage team leader in the sense that I had a vision for what I wanted to do and where I wanted to grow, but I didn't have that for my team for a very long time. That's very much changed now. And so everybody hopefully knows what's next for them, what's possible for them. Because look, if you surveyed your support teams right now, they would tell you they are more scared than they are optimistic because every day is Groundhog Day for them, right? They wake up, they do the same thing, and they don't know what the future holds. Because how do they grow and improve if their team leader is not growing and improving? And most team leaders are not doing that. They're going the wrong direction, right? Make sure that everyone knows what's possible for them. That's how you retain great people. That's how they get better. That's how everyone's rowing in the same direction. Here's some progress killers that derail team growth. Do not put too much on one person. We've had people like, oh, they're going to be a production partner and credit analyst. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare for them, which then turns into a nightmare for you. Or they're going to do this and a little bit of that. Or sometimes they're going to do this and they're going to do that. Or I'm too busy. Can you do this? If you go outside of someone's job description and you start getting people outside of their lanes, it's almost impossible to find out why things are going wrong. It's just things are going wrong and you're like, I don't know why. It's hard to know because you're asking someone to drive on the wrong side of the road. Right? So please don't put too much on one person. Keep them within their job description. That's how scalability happens. And then if things are going wrong, it's very easy to point to where, why, and how and improve upon those things. Do not hire B players. A players do not like B players, but if you have a culture where B players are allowed to be, everybody will work down to that level, as opposed to if you have all A players, everybody works up to that level. So be very cautious and audit your team if somebody made it through there. Going rogue will kill a team, right? And that's when you say, you know what, I'm just going to do it my own way. I know my company is thinking, but I think I can do it better. That's great. You'll never be able to scale that way. I wasn't able to scale that way until we created consistency. I don't know anybody else who was able to scale that way. A consistent process that is repeatable, that everybody can scale to, you can hire to, you can grow to, you can lead to. It's not always going to be perfect, right? You're going to have bumps and bruises. Sometimes you're going to have capacity challenges. The team's going to need to grow into it. But all those are better to deal with than going rogue because then 1,000% of it is on you. And I promise you don't want that as a leader. You don't have enough of a partnership to make that fly. Leaders exiting too soon, throwing a mortgage advisor in there before they're ready, just because the leader doesn't want to do the work. When rates went from 3 to 7, I saw a bunch of leaders that were just like, oh, you could do it. It's like, no, you need to take the wheel at that point. You need to be in charge of the challenging times. Trying to move people through the system too fast. Just make sure you have a good foundation before the next hire or before you stop doing something you were doing as the leader. If you don't know your numbers, you're going to fail. I don't know any other way to put it. If you don't know every dollar that's coming in, if you don't know where it's being allocated, if you don't know how it's being utilized, if you don't know all your margins, you're not really running a business at that point. You're just running a hobby. Bad tech and inefficiency is going to be a nightmare. I can tell you from being in a place with bad tech to now being in a place with good tech, it is night and day difference. And just knowing that we have a roadmap for continual tech advancement is super helpful. Lack of quality control, right? So not having somebody overseeing the big picture will ruin a team. Leaders not growing is a problem. If you are a leader and you are stagnant, stagnancy is going to kill your business. Why? Because other people are going to create more market share and more market share. They're going to get more of the economics, and then they're going to move in on the existing business that you have. So if you're not growing, it's not okay. Right? It's not okay for you. It's not okay for your team, right? Sustainability is really tough in a world where market share is going to move to the top. And that wasn't the case for the last 10 years, but it will be the case for the next 10 years. If there's no collective team vision, then you have a bunch of mercenaries working for money, not patriots working because they believe in the mission. We want patriots. We want people that believe in the cause. And it helps when times are challenging for people to be like, I know it sucks right now. I know it's hard right now, but I know where we're going and I believe in this group. Hire those people. And then lack of mission alignment is that will be a game changer as well. When you are aligned, anything's possible. When you're misaligned, almost nothing is doable. All right, I know we're running out of time here. So other teammates at scale, you want to have a business development manager, you want to have a team manager, and you want to have a marketing teammate. And again, we'll go through we went through when to hire those people, but we can send those job descriptions as well if you just ping me on LinkedIn or Instagram. All right, so guys, this is the important part of the close here, right? Is that change is not coming, it's here. And I don't care if you're perfect or even if you're less than perfect. What I care about is you're working towards it. And this is a text from your future self. Like, why do you keep promising change but staying exactly the same? Do not allow yourself to be in this place. If you're still in this business today, and if you want to be it for the next decade, right, work towards change on a daily basis, even if it's hard, right? But if you know you're headed in the right direction, that's all that matters. And again, this is no longer a future state. I was telling people since we started this journey, like 50 to 100 families a month is going to be the number. Josh Metal on our team here at Neo, him and his group helped 82 families, and their ops leaders like, look, we couldn't have done that previously. And like most of them were clear to close a week before the end of the month, right? So they actually had extra time to spare. So this is and they're using this model, right? They're using all the same systems. This is not a hypothesis. This is real time. This is the point where, again, I can only probably help 10, maybe a little more, but if you want an audit on your business, like a scalability and team audit, based upon where you are, just scan this QR code, fill in the information, and we'll reach out to you with a link to schedule a time. And I will personally jump on and help you. Probably really only want to do this if you're helping 4 to 5 families a month, because that's when team scale and audit really is meaningful and impactful. For the first 10 people or so that do this, we'll get you set up. And I wish I would have had someone do this with me early on in my career, because I had to learn it just through trial and error, mostly error. But this will be super helpful. And then again, if you want the job descriptions, if you want this deck, if you want all the stuff, just DM me on Instagram or LinkedIn, and we'll make sure to send you everything there. All right. So lastly here, guys, just don't wait for this to come to you. This is not something that is, I'm going to stop sharing here so I can speak to you a little more freely. This is not something that you can have the ability to sit back on. If you think about every championship team, there's one thing in common, right? Which is they never win by accident. They win because the right players are in the right positions. But most importantly, they're driven by the right leaders, right, with a clear vision and an aligned mission. And in the mortgage industry, the same thing holds true. Right? Success doesn't come from chance, it comes from building a team. I've never once in my whole career seen a successful or very successful mortgage professional that does it on their own. And so just every other business or every other team that you know, it all is built on the foundation of teamwork. So you now have the blueprint. And I know I went through that fast. I know we only had an hour. This is probably a full day seminar and session, but at least you have the building blocks, and then just reach out to us if we can be helpful. But you have the blueprint for how to hire, how to lead, how to scale, and how to really grow a team that doesn't just grow, but it thrives. Because look, I think this is the best time I've ever seen for your business to go from good to unstoppable. The future of the mortgage industry genuinely is going to belong to leaders who combine really cutting edge technology with world-class teams, right? That's the blueprint we're using. And it's what you should be doing as well. And look, I know there's a lot of talk about AI, and I just spoke at an AI summit, so I understand maybe the hypocrisy, but AI is definitely going to power the engine. But culture and leadership are going to be what drive the car, right? Because when tech and team work together, it's not just that you might grow your business, it's inevitable that you're going to grow your business. So, guys, I hope this was helpful. I know we have about 3 minutes left. I'll see if I can jump in and answer some of these things. But I hope you guys join us next month on the third Thursday of the month for the continuation of the Own Your Future in the Mortgage Business webinar series. We're going to dive deeper into the mortgage economics part of this business. We had almost 1,000 mortgage professionals watch the first webinar, and the feedback has been overwhelming. It's been hard to keep up with just because I know we struck a chord when we start to teach people what's happening in broker economics, what's happening in retail economics, what's happening in banking and credit union economics. And I promise you, your business becomes much easier if you just understand the numbers, right? It becomes less frustrating. It becomes less emotional, it becomes a lot more logical when you know every basis point, every dollar, you have visibility, you have clarity. So we're actually going to open it up and just dive deeper. So if you have questions, feel free to email or reach out to me. I can build those into the presentation in advance, but we're going to open up this next one where you can raise your hand. We'll take people off mute and we can just talk through some of the questions you have about economics, because I think that of all the things that's happening in the mortgage space today, if you really want to grow a great team, you have to understand every basis point, every dollar, capital markets. You really need to know how your business is operating. And that is obviously the economics is the gas that runs the engine. So we have a lot of questions here. Yeah,
And
I don't know.
any suggestion on how to best approach your company if it feels like you have to claw your way to try to get support?
Great question. Yes, thank you. Just go to whoever your leader is and maybe ask them to watch this. I don't know if that's the right answer, but it's unanswered, right? If they believe in you and if you believe in you, they should provide the resources that allow you to get where you could go if they took the weight off your back. If you're still calculating income, if you're running credit, if you're looking at assets, if you're running AUS, if you're following up on conditions, if you're talking to underwriters, you're doing it wrong. I'm sorry. I know it's not easy to hear, but your company should realize that the mortgage professional of the future has nothing to do with that, right? The mortgage professional of the future is a storyteller, is an influencer, is an educator, is an advisor. They're talking with clients, they're meeting with business partners. They have to figure out how to run a scalable team that helps 50 to 100 families a month. Let's bet on that person, right? And I think that if they believe in you, they'll invest in you. But again, a lot of people haven't put this in place in their business, so they just might need a little guidance there. Any other questions that were consistent or deliverable?
Just a few had asked if you're closing 15 or more loans per month, that's requires a high amount of leads coming in. And then they asked, what's the strategy for generating a massive amount of leads to get there?
Yeah, that takes collaboration between you and your organization. We did a lead generation webinar. If you haven't watched that, just go to my YouTube channel. It's the third webinar that we did in the 5-part series called Lead Generation. It's not much really matters without that, right? So you have to have the gas to put in the engine. Your tech and your team is the engine. Your lead generation is the gas. If you haven't watched that one, please do. But the collaboration between your company creating leads at scale, which is way easier to do than any one of us trying to do it on our own, combined with your visibility, your uniqueness, and your ability to do it in your own way is going to be super helpful. We may have an announcement coming up here in the next 60 days I think might help more people with this, or at least conceptualize what's happening. But if you look at the landscape of the mortgage industry, a lot of mortgage companies are trying to get to the lead first, right? A lot of real estate companies, like everyone's trying to get to the lead first. You need to be a part of that in some capacity. It doesn't need to be all on you, right? It should be a combination of your organization and you. If you have questions about that, obviously reach out to me and let me know, and happy to chat with you about what we're doing or what other companies could or should be doing. But yeah, it's a great question, right? It sounds good to help 15 families a month, but you need to have a good amount of incoming traffic for that to happen. All right, guys, so it is 12:01. I want to be cognizant of your time. We will let you guys go. Reach out if you have questions. Looking forward to helping those of you who want to do your audit and team scale. And please come back next month for the economics webinar. I promise you it's going to be mind-blowing. It will teach you some things in really unique ways, and I think it will make an impact on how you control and operate your business. So have an awesome rest of your week, rest of the month, and we'll see you guys in September. Thanks, y'all.